So first thing I want to show you is I have this survey, and I've named it Delete with Contours because this was on a project I had actually worked on, and so I had to manipulate the CAD file just a tiny bit before I brought it into Revit, meaning I turned off some of the labels and annotation and stuff before I could work with it. How many of you are are any of you civil engineers in here? That's okay. I have a few in the morning class. Anyway, so this was a project, I don't even know maybe what it's called. It's up by Immigration, not Immigration, well, no, not Immigration, maybe like 13th South and really far east, like 2030 East, somewhere in there. But essentially when we started this project, we had a survey done, right? And this is what the survey looked like that we got from the civil engineer, right? So number one, it's a CAD file, right? Number two, it's an elevated CAD file. So this CAD file isn't just sitting flat at, you know, layer, I guess if you want to say layer 0, right? They actually, what's that? You don't know any. That's okay. We don't need to know this. This is in our department. We may have to reference it a little, right? But when you get a 3D CAD file like this, it has an elevation. All the CAD file, the lines have elevations associated with them. And so when I look at this, or actually let me pop into 3D here. Hopefully these should. I'm not getting usually it has like an elevation. Yeah, I think so, but I think. Yeah, because those are the same. So it's giving me, these are all broken up into individual lines, and so I'm getting a couple of readings from each one. But my z-axis, right, so I have my y, I have my x, and I have my z. That the z is going to be my elevation. So these are at 48, 45, right? And so all of these, you know, are generated, and then when you start a project, this is given to you, right? And I don't think a lot of times clients really kind of understand how important topography is to a project, right? How your architecture really interacts with the site is really important. Anyway. But this is what the CAD file will look like, right? And I think the most important things I just want to point out to you are that it's a CAD file, it's a 3D CAD file, right? You get it from your civil engineer, surveyor, hopefully your engineer, so that they, you know, take responsibility for it, and that it is a 3-dimensional file. So it is actually these topos are at actual, you know, height above sea level, essentially. So when I got this survey, and I think I had to delete a lot of stuff out of it, and I say that, like I said before, meaning like labels and annotation and stuff, because I don't think, I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, so I have some things that are turned off here, right? But I had to turn all that stuff off, right, in order for it to work in Revit the way I wanted it to. Okay. All right, so that's what my CAD file looks like, but that is not something you'll generate. That'll be something that is given to you, essentially, okay? So I'm gonna open up my Revit file now, and I think I saved it somewhere else last time we met. This one, okay, there we go. Here it is. So when we were working in here last time, I generated a topo surface, right? I'm gonna shade view this, just by calling out points, right? So I went to my site plan, click, okay, and I clicked on massing and site, and I went to topo surface, right? And using place points, I specified an elevation, and then I clicked to generate my topo surface, right? Just using elevations that I pulled out of my head, right? So we started at 0 and we moved up a little bit, and then we moved back down, okay? Now this CAD file, I'm gonna cancel out of this. Right now, if I go into a side view of it, which we've been looking at a side view a lot, right? Essentially this this Revit file is at 0, right? Meaning that these levels tell me that when I created them, right, this one says 0, negative 10 inches, right? So that means that if there were a datum marker in Revit and we called it 0, the floor plan has been created at that level, right? It's not 100 feet above it. It's not 200 feet above it. It's not at, 4,800 feet above sea level. It's at 0, okay? So when I bring a topo surface into Revit, if it's at 4,000 feet above our data marker 0, it's going to be 4,000 feet above our project, essentially, okay? So what we usually do, instead of taking our model and moving it up 4,000 feet, right, we build our model at level 0 in one Revit file, and then in a separate Revit file, we create our topography, and we link them together and we share their coordinates, okay? And we're not going to do this, actually, right, because it's complicated. But what that does is it allows you to measure things in your topography file from sea level, right? So we can say finished floor is at 4,800 feet above sea level, and the roof is at 4,825 or whatever. So we can get actual data markers from sea level in our linked topo file, but we can keep our house over here at 0 and not mess things up, I guess, is maybe an uncomplicated way of saying it, right? So we can read the actual data markers in the topo file, but keep our file, pretty simplistic, okay? But what is really nice about the topography in Revit is it's just really easy to create, right? When I was in school, this was probably just an exercise in failure if I tried to do exactly what I'm going to do today. Okay, so I think things have come a long way. And let me just do something real quick. I'm gonna try and do this quickly. Let's see, do not crop view. Okay, I'm going to not do normally what I would do with my topography file, but I'm gonna go to Insert, and I'm gonna click on Link CAD, and I'm gonna go find that AutoCAD, that 3D AutoCAD file that I want to show you. And it's called Survey Delete, okay? And I want to preserve my colors. I want to do visible. See ya. Auto detect, this looks good. Place at, that's fine. Orient to view, okay. All right, so I'm gonna link in that CAD file. I'm gonna show you what happens. I'm going rogue here, so hopefully this doesn't bite me. Okay, there we go. Oh, shoot, I already did something wrong. Sorry, guys. I should have done it in a floor plan view. Very tired tonight. Link CAD. Okay. So let's do that same thing over again. There we go. Preserve visible auto. Lucas. Okay. Okay. Let's see if I can find it now. Yeah. Let's see. There it is. Oh, there you go. All right, so there is my CAD file, and let's take a look at it, right? It's kind of out there, right? It has been placed correctly though, right? I look at it, and without knowing anything, right? If this were level 0, then that somewhat looks like it could be 4,000 feet above it, right? I'm gonna do something I would not normally do, because I want to maintain that height because it's correct, but I think I'm gonna just try, and for the sake of doing this today, I'm just gonna bring this hopefully down to where we can see it. Okay. Oh my goodness. I don't want to say that was easy just yet, but that seemed to have worked. You must be living right tonight. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So what I just did there is I just kind of moved our CAD file over to where our site is, right? And now I can kind of see in an elevation view what is happening there, okay? The really great thing about Revit is that Revit sort of understands these CAD files, and it will allow you to generate a 3D topo surface using those CAD files from the civil engineer, which is magic, which is really magic. And the really great thing about this is not only can we do this in Revit, but this translates to SketchUp. So if any of you use SketchUp, this is really easy to do in SketchUp as well. Sorry, I just want to move this down just a tiny bit more. There we go, we'll do that. All right. So we can create a topo surface the first way that I showed, you know, on Monday, where you click on massing and site and you click on topo surface and then you place your points, right? Great. But we can also create a topo surface using a linked CAD file, all right? And to do that, I'm going to go to massing and site. I'm going to click on topo surface and I'm going to choose create from import. Select an import instance. Click, and it will allow me to choose the layers that I want to help generate the 3D topo surface. So I'm gonna just uncheck all these that I know don't apply to my actual surface. I know the major and minor topo lines are gonna be where it's at, I guess. I'm gonna hit OK. Look at that, right? So essentially, with all of those AutoCAD lines being where they were, Revit generates points, right? And again, I've moved it up and down a lot. So if it were actually up at like 4,800, you know, feet above sea level, then it would read those points at 4,800 feet above sea level, right? But essentially, Revit creates all of these points automatically. Okay, so I picked my instance, I hit finish, and there's my topo surface, right? You guys don't appreciate it yet. You will. You will. You're like, oh, that's cool, right? This is just really something. I still am amazed by it, right? Every time I do it, I'm like, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. I just know it. And every time it generates, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. And what's great about it is it's from a survey, right? So it's accurate, and you can bring it into this program and actually see how, you know, the topography is going to interact with your building. So, which is really important, especially if you're doing homes, because a lot of zoning requirements will only allow you to go so tall on your site, right? And the height is not based on finished grade. It's based on existing grade, right? So to have an existing as-built topo surface where you can measure off of, you know, to reference your architecture, it's really valuable. Anyway, anybody gonna do residential homes? Maybe? This will be your best friend then. Okay. So there's the second way that we're going to be able to generate topography, right? And once we have our topography generated, another really nice feature of Revit is that I can grade. I'm going to turn this CAD file off. I'm going to right click and hit hide in view. I can grade my topo surface, right? So if I click on it, I can, or actually, sorry, if I go to massing and site, I can choose graded region, click, and it will allow me to take this topo surface, create an exact copy, and it's going to put it on an existing phase, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will. And then it will allow me to alter it, essentially. So I can come in here and I can grab these points and say, well, instead of 1'6", you know, maybe these need to be negative. I'm not going to do a whole lot here because it's going to end up being totally wonky. But do you see it created a little hill right there, right? We'll do a few of those. So instead of whatever those end up being, we'll do it at 2 foot. We'll get another little hill. We've got gophers.
20 feet. Come on, have some fun.
Should we do, well, no. You're crazy, man. Okay, so I can grade this region and I can hit finish. Hey, it's like a motorcycle track. You right? And then
cut the hole in the roof to land. Because there's no door, remember. Right.
It's nice, right? But I mean, again, how easy is, I mean, I guess unless you've had to do this this is not my favorite thing to do, right? When I'm working on projects, I just don't like doing the grading plan, and it's not my job anyway, but I just don't like doing it. And this is just such a helpful tool in aiding you and being able to visualize it. So you can create the topo surface, you can grade it, which is amazing, right? And you can also label the contours. So if I go to my main level, right, I can go click on label contours. I can draw, this is a little bit finicky, but I can draw, oh, I think I need to be on the site plan. I can draw my contours, right? Oop, come on. Hopefully this will work without having anything set up. There we go. Okay. Oh, it didn't, hold on, let's see. Oh, are they tiny? Yep, they're just tiny. There we go. Like, where did they go? I don't see them. But I can pull a line through and I can hit the contours, right? So when you have a linked file where one file is maintaining its level above sea level and you have another file that is referencing that, I can still read the, 4850, 4855, 4860 or whatever on my topo surface, right? So that I can see where all the levels hit, okay?
And your elevation markers, are those going to base off of the...
That's a good question. So when you link your files together, you can choose that.
Okay.
So you can choose to say, no, I want them to be like 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, or you can choose to reference the actual topography and have it read like 4850, 4855 or whatever you want it to do.
Cool.
Yeah. And if that wasn't wonderful enough, right, I'm going to go back to I'm in my site plan. When I draw a section or I draw an elevation view or something and I engage some of this topography that has been graded, right? And this is another nice feature when you are working on a project and you need to illustrate to a city for permits existing grade and also the grading, right? Cut and fill, how much has been removed, how much has been added, right? So Revit will show this dashed line right here that shows existing grade, and this crosshatch that shows where existing grade is, and then this new pyramid of earth that we decided to design into our landscaping, right? So this is an existing condition and this is a new condition, right? So I don't really expect any of you to do something quite like this, but I think it's really helpful to know that Revit has this capability, right? So super helpful. And in the future, when you're working on something, you'll say, I know it can do that. Let me figure out again how to do that.
No way, we'll go to the YouTube videos.
There you go, right? There you go. Okay. So that's how you're going to work with a linked file to create your topography, okay? I think I'm going to actually, I know we have some annotation stuff we want to work with, but I think I'm also going to talk about phasing. Maybe we'll do that on Monday, right? Okay. So any questions on any of that?
Can you remind me how to do like the footprint of the house?
Yes, so that the earth is not going into it. Yeah. Yes, let's look at that. Okay, so I've drawn my topography, but it is going very nicely into my whole house, right? And what I want to do here is I want to add a building pad. And so I'm going to go to Massing and Site, and I'm going to click on Building Pad. And I'm just going to draw a boundary around the outside of my house. So where I don't want that, whoops, where I don't want that earth to happen, right? So wherever this is a little bit deceiving, right? The way I've got all these weird lines everywhere. And the building pad will, it just essentially filters out that earth, right? So the building pad, I'm going to draw an outline. The building pad has a structure associated with it. So if I edit the type, you can see it's 6 inches thick, right? I can make it whatever thickness I want. And it's also associated with the level. So right now it's associated with the main level, which means if I hit finish, then it will start filtering the earth out from the main level, right? But in actuality, I want this to start at the basement, right? So I'm gonna hit basement, hit apply, and then I'm gonna finish the sketch. And now when I look at my, oh, sorry, I have something else happening. Let me delete that. Now when I look at my, my topography, that's all been filtered out. And right there, see when I hover over it, that says that's my building pad right there.
Can you do like the drawing and at the same time, or would you have to do 2 of them?
I'd probably do 2 of them. I do one and then finish it and then go back in and do a second one. Yeah, just to
Is
keep
there
them
a way to
separate.
edit it once it's been
Mhm.
done?
It's just like a floor. Yeah,
I
it's
tried to, and I couldn't get mine to like engage to edit.
to grab it.
Yeah.
So it can be like a floor in that it's hard to grab as well. So when I'm in, you go to a sectional view essentially, right? So I'm in my sectional view, I can very clearly see it, and I'm going to hit edit boundary. And then it will say, hey, you can only edit this in this certain view. So I go back to my, main level, and then I can edit it. Yeah. So I think that in Revit, basic topography is really easy to generate, right? And it's nice to give a ground plane so that, clients and, whoever's looking at it, they have a reference for what it's going to look like, right? And unless you get I'm not going to say most, but a lot of sites, for builders, you have a pretty good chance of getting a flat site, and it's not a big deal. And people kind of just want to see how the ground plane is interacting with the house, right? So it's really nice to just basically use it for that, or even kind of guess, it's very level with the road at the front of the property, and it slopes up 3 or 4 feet. It's nice to see, right? And we can generate that to show the design intent. It is really powerful though when you can get a 3D CAD file, and if you have significant topography, be able to show the client what's happening. Okay. All right. Any other questions on topography so far? Okay. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to post one more small assignment for this residence, and essentially it's just going to be to kind of wrap it up, and wrapping it up means I want you to put a topo surface in there and probably add another sheet for a site plan, and then submit that, and this one will be finished. Okay, so I'll try and do that tomorrow. But after that, we're just going to be working on the wireless switch for the rest of the semester. Okay. Speaking of which, should we get going on that a little bit? Okay.
I've got a quick question. I'm trying to do the boundary line or whatever and get rid of the dirt in there. And every time I try to get on it, like intersects lines or doesn't connect, or
So I would just continue to draw and then use trim to trim it out.
I just trim it out.
Yeah.
That'll be okay. Or,
Yeah, it's fine. That's how Revit kind of functions, honestly.
okay.
Doesn't quite always get exactly where you want it to go. All right, so I think I downloaded a little while ago, I think I downloaded the wireless switch drawings. Let's see, downloads. Yes, okay. So let's do this. I'm just going to start a brand new drawing. I'm going to use the architectural template. And I'm going to, I'll maybe draw for like a half hour or so and get the wireless switch project going, okay? And then next time I'll do maybe another half hour of drawing, and then we'll talk about, I know I talked about what we're going to talk about next time, but I've already forgotten. Some annotation, yes. Some annotation and components, that was it. So I think every week, over the next few classes, we'll do a little bit of wireless switch drafting, right? Answer some questions. And then we'll talk about annotation a little bit. And then our very last lecture, which will be the 11th, we'll do some virtual reality. That'll be our day for virtual reality. All right. So I am going to pull this over here just a little bit. I'm going to try and get both of these drawings on the same screen, and hopefully that functions okay. Okay. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Ooh. It might work. Okay, so we'll just do that. All right, so I think more than likely, what I would probably do first in this case, I would probably start setting up some sheets and getting my title block ready so that, you know, if a client came in, then I'd be ready to print. But I think instead of kind of doing that today, I'll just start doing some drawing, right? We'll work through that a little bit. And then next time, once we have some geometry generated, I'll start looking at putting some of these things on sheets. So let's see here. Oop, let me see. Let's zoom in here a little bit. So we have the upper level floor plan, and we have the lower level floor plan here. Okay, and I'm gonna look at this, and I think actually the first thing I'll probably have to do is create a couple of wall types so that I have some walls to draw with. The building is fairly simple, honestly, right? I look at it. Initially, I look at it and I think I'm going to create some wall types, and then I'm probably going to lay out a grid system, and then we'll just keep drawing. Okay. I'll probably have to switch back and forth between the floor plan and the elevation so that I can figure out dimensions and all that good stuff. But let's start with some wall types. So the first wall type, I'm going to let you guys get these totally correct in your assignment. I'm going to create 3 wall types for now. I'm going to create one. This looks like CMU block, so I'm just going to create a block wall type, and then I'm going to create a 2x, or maybe this is probably metal or steel studs. So they'll be maybe 3 5/8 or 6 inches. So I think we'll do 3 5/8 for some of these. So I'm just going to create a couple of different wall types for now.
Quick question. So
Yeah.
when I was working on this earlier, I did the CMU block or whatever.
Mhm.
I can add, there was no way for me that I could add like, you know, a 2x6 or a 2x4 with insulation or something. Do you just put another wall on the inside of that?
Do you mean to show the insulation?
Yeah, to show this extra wall
Right.
next to the fur out from the CMU.
Let's do that then. I'll do that. I'll show you.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right, so let's create a first wall type. We'll create this one, and we'll create the block wall with some furring in front of it. I'm gonna go through my wall types, and I'm gonna find the wall that is most similar to what I want to create, right? So probably I've got CMU on metal stud here, right? And I'm gonna hit edit type, and I'm gonna duplicate this, and I'm gonna call it wall type 1 for me, right? Okay, so I duplicated that wall type so that I can maintain the original wall type in the drawing without editing it, just in case I need it. I'm going to hit edit for structure, and I'm going to go through here, and this is where you would add the block wall and then the furring in front of it, right? So under structure, you would have
Oh, I didn't see that one.
this is
Wow, that was a pretty good one. That one.
yeah. But the funny thing is that I guess they use their CMU on the outside as finish. I guess that's fine. But in general, I would say that CMU is likely going to be the structure, right? And then in my mind, I'm thinking you have the CMU and then you just put a furring wall in front of it, right? So the CMU would be more the structure. So I think I might change these around just a little bit to do that. So I'm going to move this down into the core boundary area, and then my metal stud, I'm going to move that down, and I'll have that be a secondary, right? That's not going to be structure anymore. So we're going to change this to structure, CMU 7 5/8. This is probably the hardest part of Revit for new designers, right? I don't know the thickness of the walls. I don't, just guess, right? Make it, well, let me just say, well, not guess, I get, not guess, but we have a set of drawings that will tell you, but you know, if it's fine if they're not totally perfect, right? I get that this is the hard part. Yep.
Which wall type did you select to edit?
There was one that was called CMU wall with metal stud, something like that.
Exterior brick and metal stud, or
CMU,
brick and CMU and metal stud.
yeah, that was the one. Yep. All right, so I've got my masonry here, and then on the exterior side, that's really going to be it. I'm going to move a few of these down. And I'm going to have to rearrange them. This one actually works pretty well because I'm just rearranging as opposed to adding and subtracting or redefining, right? So we'll have our CMU on the outside, and then we'll have our air gap, or let's see, yeah, and then we'll have our plywood, our air barrier, our metal stud, vapor retarder, and then the gypsum board. So that actually lined up pretty well, right? Let's look at a preview. Oh, 4 and 5. What did I do? Oh no. So this, I've said this before, I think, but if you hit escape in this dialog box, just even by habit, it messes everything up. So I hit escape and it sent everything back to where it was. I'm going to delete a couple of these things. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to delete, no, I'm going to move that down. Okay. Okay, so we have our CMU, 3, 2, 1, membrane layer 5, finish 2. I think that'll work. Let's view this. Oh, jeez. I feel like at this point it would just be easier for me to build it. I'm getting some errors in how these are being, let's see, 4, plywood sheathing, down, down. Yeah, so we have our CMU, and then we have our air gap. All right, so structure 1, air, substrate. I'm gonna get rid of a few of these just so I don't get any more errors, I'll be honest. Okay, on my structure, I'm gonna choose insert, move it down, down, and then we will add our air barrier or air space here. We will make that 1 inch. And I'm going to insert again. And this is up. Thermal air layer, good. 1, 3. Okay, then this is going to be plywood. We'll have some substrate. Plywood, there we go. And that'll be on the wall, probably 1/2 inch. And then we're going to insert our, we'll do finish 2, substrate, we'll do substrate. This will be our metal stud. And 5/8. And then we will insert some finish here, and our interior side is here, so I'm building from the exterior side right to the interior side. So the exterior has a CMU block, we have air, an air gap, plywood, metal stud, and then we'll do some gypsum board here.
So on the wall type they have in the plans, there's like the CMU, the inch gap, and then the metal stud. And overlapping the inch gap and half the metal stud, there's like a blow-in.
Oh yeah,
like
the spraying insulation.
Is there a way of like putting that?
It won't allow you to overlap them. Revit won't allow you to overlap them.
So
Yeah.
that's something that you would just draw in like a detail.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Okay.
Question.
Yep.
Thickness thing where I can't change the thickness of some of my, it was like the concrete masonry units, so won't let me change the thickness.
Let me look here. Hold on 1 second. Let me take a look. Air row 4. Layer function properties cannot ascend from the core boundary. Okay. Let me take a look. Oh, it's okay. So you chose a stacked wall, I think. So don't use that one. Okay. So let me show everybody that wall type. Hold on 1 second. Okay. So I've got my wall type here. So the wall type that you've chosen to edit, you chose probably one up here, maybe, or one of the was it this one at the very bottom? This one?
At the very top.
The one at the very top. Okay. So I'm thinking here, so this one is, no, yeah, so let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so what this wall looks like when we actually draw it is like this. Okay, and so this is kind of a stacked wall, or we have a region in here that's split, and so it is constraining your ability to change the thicknesses because of how we have CMU down here and how we have brick up here, essentially, which I don't really want to get into right now. So I think it'd probably just be easier to pick a different one and edit a different one, essentially. Yeah. Okay. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. It's kind of complicated. Okay, we actually talk about that in 2510, the residential construction one, a little bit more. Okay, so I've created my first wall type, right? And that is wall type 1, right? And I'm gonna hit edit and edit again. And funny enough, actually, this specific instance, it sort of worked against me using an existing wall type because I wanted to really reorganize all of the different layers within it. So it may have honestly been easier for me just to create a brand new wall type with this one. But Dawn, to answer your question, the way you're going to do it is you're going to stack all of these layers here, right, next to one another, right?
Okay.
Now, by doing that, right, when I create my wall, WA wall, let me just look at this wall real quick. When I look at it, and I see CMU on one side, this is the inside. When I cut a section of it, let's cut a section of it really quick. We're not seeing the insulation in it, right, which we kind of talked about. And I'm hoping we get to this in the next couple weeks. We may or may not. But what ends up happening is when you cut a section of a wall like this, you're going to add that insulation detail into the details here, and you're going to do that using detail components, right? And so, for example, there's an insulation tool here. This is, right? AutoCAD doesn't have that, right? Right? So we're going to come into the details, and while this may not really be illustrated like in the wall type, or if it's doing whatever it's doing, right? You can illustrate it in the details here. Yeah. Okay. So my first wall type. Okay. And I have my wall type, but really kind of the next thing I'm going to do here is define the grid system here. Okay. Did we talk about grids? I can't. No? Did I mention it in the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about grids then. They're pretty easy to do. So I'm going to establish a grid system for this project first, and I'm going to do that so that I can line all my walls up fairly easy. Okay. Mickey needs a cigarette back there, I think. That's the problem. That's funny. I know, old AutoCAD habit, right? Escape, escape. Okay, so let's establish our grid system. I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Architecture here, and all the way at the end I have Grid. And the grid, it's kind of like a horizontal level system, right? But it's not as strict or rigid as a horizontal or a vertical level system, right? These, the grids, it's a 3D element, and it's a 3D element because we can see it in all the views that we create them in. But they just establish a datum in Revit essentially, right? Not a datum like levels where you maybe measure to them, but a visual datum, right? So you'll have a structural grid designated on a set of drawings like this to establish lines of structure and different things in the project, right? So it makes sense for us to start laying these grids out, and they're really easy to use. So I'm going to click on Grid, and I'm going to click my first grid, and I'm just going to make it whatever distance I need to make it to be able to view it honestly at this point, right? Because I just have to get my first one established, okay? So this one's going to be A, so I'm going to come up here to this bubble and click on it twice very slowly and type A, enter. Okay, these function just like levels in that I can uncheck that, and the little little tag on the end goes away. It has a little elbow here if I need to kink it, right? I want to establish grid B. So I come back to grid and I click and I drag out grid B, click. Okay, now these two are 10 feet apart, so I'm going to pull a dimension between the two and just establish 10 feet between the two. I'm going to click on this one and click that bubble head on first. DI dimension, click, click, there you go. Okay, now they're 19 feet apart, so I'm going to click on B, click on the dimension, type 10 foot, there you go. Okay, now I need to create grid C. And I'm going to CO copy this one instead of creating a new one. I'm going to copy it over 10 foot. There's grid C. DI dimension, click, 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 there we go. So A, B, C, D is another 10 feet. So click on it, CO, click, 10 foot, enter, there's D. DI, click, click, 10 feet. We have E now, which is our last grid, and that's 30 feet from D. So click on D, CO, click, 30, enter, and there's E, right? And Revit's smart enough to know that they all want to go sequentially. DI, click, click, there we go. Okay. All right, so we have A, B, C, D, E. That's our, you know, I guess sort of our vertical grid. And then we have our horizontal grid, which is going to be numbers, so that, you know, when you call your structural engineer and say, hey, there's a column that's in a weird spot, can you look at, you know, in the area of C1, right? And they can see that wherever that is happening, right? So it's a nice way to establish lines of structure, and it's also a nice way to be able to locate things in a set of drawings. All right, so I'm going to click on grid again. Let's see if there's a keyboard shortcut. I like keyboard shortcuts. GR. So GR. And again, I'm just going to kind of pull one here and get it functioning and then move from there. So this one instead of F is going to be 1. And then I'm going to CO, copy it down. Oh, grid 2 is only 4 inches off grid 1. So CO, 4 inches. There we go. Okay. And I have my next grid, which will be 16 foot 4 off of that. So CO, 16 foot 4, enter. DI dimension, click, 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 right? And I just kind of pull it up close to there. Looks pretty good. My grid number, between grid 3 and 4, I have 16 foot 8. Click, CO, copy, CO, 16 foot 8, enter. There we go. One more, 16 foot 8, click, CO, 16 foot 8, there we go. DI dimension, click, click. There we go. And we have one more, right? Grid 6, and that's 8 foot away. So CO, that is 8 foot, enter. There we go. DI, click, click, bring it up, click, there we go. Okay, so these are obviously way too long, so I'm going to just drag these up a little bit, right? And there is our grid system. And actually at this point, I think I don't like how they're sort of off center, so I'm going to grab them all and just drag them into the center a little bit, right? I haven't drawn any geometry, so there's nothing really to mess up, right? So I'm just going to grab all of that, move it over into the center. Now when I look at this, right, all of my elevations are very nicely around this. These are, again, these are 3D elements, and I can see them in 3D, right? So, and I guess when I say 3D elements with regard to annotation, it means that it has a 3D extent. So it's not something like a column or a wall where you see an actual object in space, but you're viewing an annotation representation of it, right? So if you take that grid and say spin it around in a circle 360 degrees, you can see it in all those views that you engage. Okay, Looks pretty good. So now we have to decide where we're going to start drawing this project, right? I know that I've got this entire, we're not going to worry about that. So I have this entire outer wall, right? And I think I'm going to draw the entire outer wall. So it looks to me, I'm going to zoom in there real quick, but it looks to me like that outer edge of CMU goes, you know, it starts at grid line A and goes all the way to E. And it starts at grid line 1 and goes all the way down to grid line 5, right? And then this little vestibule pops out and goes to grid line 6. So let's do that, hopefully work out. The other thing I'm going to look at before I actually get going on that is how tall are these walls, right? I'm going to think about how to get them working the first time I draw them. So I need to go up to a section and see how things are working. Okay, that looks good. So the floor is coming in there. If I remembered, I did this last semester. Oh no, we do have a height. I was like, I think we had to count blocks. We don't. So from our main level, which we're going to call 0, up to my upper level finished floor, right, we have 15'4". But I think that in this case, we could probably draw our wall all the way from here to the roof, right? Because our floor is coming in and it's kind of bearing here, but it's not, we're not breaking up our wall at any certain point. So I think we can actually use this outer dimension. So 31'4" to the top of masonry. Yeah, okay. So 31'4". So I'm going to draw my outer wall at 31'4". So I'm going to go to wall, pick my wall type 1, and I want this to go from level 1. It's going to go 31'4", but sorry, we have to think through all these things, right, as we do it. I've got level 1, I've got level 2, and then I have the roof level. So I think I'm going to establish maybe I can call it top of masonry or top of wall or top or roof or whatever, but I think I'm going to establish a level for this. And I think I'm going to use the same terminology that I see here, top of masonry, just to make it easy for me. So I look at my north elevation, and I have these 2 default levels that came with Revit, right? I have level 1. We can establish level 2 as 15'4" now. Oops. Okay, 15'4", and then we're gonna create a new level, and that one's gonna be called, we'll call that top of masonry, and that was 31'4", is that right? 31'4".
What's the difference between going in and clicking on level and copying a level?
Okay, so with levels, that's a good question. I have to remind myself because there is a difference.
I asked because
Right.
I initially had copied them and realized
It didn't work.
I don't have any levels.
Right.
So
levels have changed over the maybe past 1 or 2 releases of Revit, where if I copy this up, do you see it creates a black level, right? So that the black level doesn't create an actual plan view of your floor.
Yeah.
So it creates a data marker, but not an actual level to go to.
Okay.
Yeah. There's some.
That's a real bullcrap. What the hell is it there for?
There you go, right? Well, no, it does make sense because sometimes you don't need a floor plan level, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
You just need the reference for a set of stairs.
For
or
the
something.
stairs. That's exactly it. Yeah. So you just need something to reference, and it's a pretty important reference. So, we need it there. The other thing that I sort of stumbled upon not too long ago was that if you sometimes, and I'm trying to remember how it works now, I think sometimes if you come in here and you delete level 1, right, it doesn't delete level 1 necessarily here, right?
There's no way to convert it from black to blue?
No.
Wow, that is
No.
uncool.
But
Put one over it though.
You could put one over it, but the problem with that is that you've established like top and bottom constraints with
According to
yeah,
that point.
yeah. So it just doesn't work out very well doing that. But what I did notice here is that I can delete a level over there and it's still represented here, right? So I don't really understand that, honestly. Anyway, so and you didn't used to be able to do this in Revit. The levels were a little bit more maybe sacred, right? Which they should be because they're very important and there's a lot of things associated with them. But they've loosened up maybe a little on that, and I don't know how I feel about that. Okay, so we have our levels established: level 1, level 2, top of masonry, and then level 4, which we'll get rid of. I don't know. Did I just draw that to show you that? I don't remember even drawing it. It's late. Okay. All right, so we have our levels established, and I'm gonna maybe go back to my floor plan view and start drawing the walls. There we go. Okay. So back to level 1, and I'm going to draw my outer wall. And so I'm going to click on wall, and my wall is going to be constrained at the base at level 1, and it's going to go all the way up to top of masonry. Okay. And my location line is going to be finish face exterior, because I know that that wall goes to the exterior. The grid is the exterior of that face of wall. So I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to follow this all the way around. Hopefully I remember where it goes to. I think it stops at
6.
Does it stop at 6?
No, 5.
5? Okay. 5, and then we'll adjust it. I know there's a vestibule here, but we'll adjust it. It goes out to there, click, and we come up here and we finish it off. So now we have, look how easy that was, right? We have our box. Yep. Okay. Then we have our vestibule, right? But the vestibule does not go all the way to the roof. But I do want to establish the vestibule. In fact, I prefer to kind of establish all of these block walls before I get into, you know, all these other framed walls. So let's go and look at our vestibule and see how tall that little guy is. Where is
What
it?
have I done wrong with my grid when I'm not seeing the A at both ends and the B at both ends?
So if you click on the grid, go down to where you're not seeing the annotation, there's a little check mark you can check and it turns on. Okay, so this appears to be, I thought we had a better section of the vestibule. Maybe not. You like that? Eh, look how nice that is. Hurts my eyes. Okay, so here's our vestibule. And this was the one where I don't see any. Do we see any dimensions? I don't see any dimensions on this one. So we're going to be counters. We're going to start counting, right? When you start working, you start counting a lot of bricks and a lot of block and a lot of different things you know the dimension of, right? So in general, I know that a block with so it's going to be 7 5/8 with a 3/8 inch joint, and so we can say confidently that these are going to be 8 inches tall, right? So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 16. Do I believe you, or should I check?
Okay, it's 15.
Is it really?
What's the point of having 1 and 2 so close to each other on the grid?
Oh,
Why would they have that?
let me look. Let's look.
I mean, that makes sense for locating things, saying, hey, around C2, but
They have a line of structure right there. There's an opening that was right there. And so they want to hit the exterior face of wall where the block is going to go. And then they want to hit that line of structure that's going to hold open that big opening right there, where there's going to be a lintel probably above there that's holding it open.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, I still think it looks goofy, but all right.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. Okay. Did you double check it? 15 or 16?
14.
Are you kidding?
16.
Okay, stop it. Okay, times that by 8. 16.
128, 10 foot 8.
10 foot 8? Okay. All right, so we're going to have to add another level. So I'm going to go back to my north, and we're going to add another level. Okay, there we go. And we're going to call this one top of vestibule. And it's going to be 10 foot 8. Okay. So let's look at our vestibule here. And the vestibule goes from grid line D out to grid line 6 over to, we don't have a grid line on the other side.
8 plus 8.
Yeah, I think, is it 8? Oh, it is 8 feet. I was gonna say, I saw this up here. Okay, yep, it is 8 feet. So we're gonna draw it, but here's the tricky thing. Well, I think we're just gonna stop it here. We'll stop the masonry right here. I think that, well, let's see. No, that masonry probably needs to go all the way there. It's probably a fire rating. Well, I'm gonna stop it there just for today. So we're gonna take the wall. I'm gonna start it here, bring it out to there. We'll come over this way and we'll go back that way. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to my main level, and it starts at D. So I'm going to WA wall, and it's going to start, the location line is finished face exterior. It's going to go from level 1 up to top of vestibule. And I'm going to come here. I'm going to get it as close as I can. It went out to here, 8 foot, and then we'll bring it back that direction. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is just make sure that when I drew that, I actually got an 8 foot dimension to the outside, which I did, so that's good. And then there's a couple of little things I have to finagle on here. It's just so tiny, right? That big wall right there. There's a couple things we have to do here. This wall right here, right? There's an opening there, right? So, but the rest of this wall right here needs to stay above that, right? So, we need to put a storefront right there to create that opening. We need to put a storefront door right here to create this opening, and we'll put a roof on it. We might not get there today, but we will put a roof on it. So let's maybe do that. Okay. So I'm going to go back to my floor plan level. We've got the outer, boundary created. We have this little vestibule. I know that, maybe just for my peace of mind, I know this is going to go a certain distance up into that area, which we'll figure out, right? But this is going to go like that. Okay. So what I want to do next is I want to add a piece of storefront right here, and I want to add a piece of storefront here, and they're going to have a door in them, right? And I want to remind you that when we create storefront, that the storefront embeds itself into a wall, right? And so when I create the storefront, it's going to create an opening here, and it will make it look as if I don't have a piece of wall there, essentially, like the block wall there, right? So I'm going to go to wall now. Architectural, I'm going to go all the way down to my storefront. And I'm going to draw my storefront, and it's going to go from level 1. How tall is it? I think we need to look at a section. Well, we'll guess for now. Let's say it's like 8 feet tall. I'm going to make it unconnected and 8 foot tall. Okay, so it looks like that for now. What I'm going to do is AL align, click, click, AL align, click, click. Okay, so I've got my little piece of storefront there. Looks pretty good. But I have a door here, so I've got a door, and I know that door is probably going to be, it has to be 3 foot, right? Tabbing, remember there's a lot of tabbing in with regard to storefront. I'm going to tab to grab the curtain grid there. I'm going to unpin it. And I'm going to move it over until I get pretty close to 3 feet. Oh, 3 foot, 3.25. There we go. Ah. I hate storefront. There we go. Okay. So I grabbed my grid right there, and with my dimension and by kind of using increments of inches, I was able to input whatever dimension I needed to get that 3 foot opening, right? Which I'm assuming that's what that is. 3 foot, 3 foot 6, whatever it ends up being. Okay. Now I need to add a door here, right? So to add a door, you probably don't remember, but I need a tab. Oh, first I need to go and find the door. I need to load it, but tab, tab, tab. I need to change the panel to a door, right? That's how we do a storefront door, okay? So I'm gonna go to Insert, Load Family. I'm gonna go to Doors, and we've got a single glass storefront door, open, and it's loaded in now. It's a little tricky getting started on this project, right? Luckily, you'll have a video to watch to do it all. Tab, 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 click, unpin. And I'm going to change this panel from that glazed panel to a door. Click, click. I'm going to go into 3D view. Now in 3D view, I'm not able to like view the door in 3D view, but I do know from experience that there's going to be a mullion at the bottom there. I'm going to tab, 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 click, unpin, delete, so that my door will work right. I'm going to go to my south elevation and see that I do in fact have a little cute little door right there. Okay. Now what's nice about that is that I can grab this, I can CO copy it, and I can just copy it down to that, and look how nicely that worked, right? So now I go into 3D, and it looks the way it should. Now one thing I'm kind of wondering about here, we can look at the window or the door types, storefront types, but I want to see where that, how many pieces of block we have above that door. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 32 inches about 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's about right. Okay. Good. All right. So, any questions so far?
How did you move the mullion in the storefront?
In the store, tricky, tricky, tricky. Yes, that is the trick. So I had to go to a plan view, number 1, right? And I had to hover over the mullion, and then I had to tab until I found that. Click. And then I didn't actually, you could use the move command to move it. Then I used this dimension. You know, I could increase that to 4 feet, and it would move that. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. All right, so we have our outer boundary, we have our little vestibule established. Let's just create a couple, I'm going to create a couple of inner walls, and then I'm going to stop for tonight maybe. And then next time we meet, I'll do the foundation walls and I'll do the stairs. And get going on that stuff because that will take me a little while to do. So let's add a couple of these walls. Okay. First thing I want to kind of notice is where these walls are, how they're drawn, right? How they're dimensioned. And these walls are drawn center line. So when I draw them, I can just draw them center line. I've got some doors I can create. Okay. So I'm going to add another wall type in here. WA. I'm going to go to, oh, well, I actually have a partition that's probably pretty close. I'm going to hit edit type, duplicate, WT2, edit. It's a metal stud, 3 5/8 with gypsum board on both sides, 2 layers, fire rating, delete, delete, and I've got my wall. Wall type 2. They're not always that easy, right? I think I'm going to start over here. My first wall that I'm going to draw is going to start at grid number 4, and it's going to go all the way over until it somewhat intersects with grid line D. Okay, and these walls, when I look at my drawings here, they're going to go from the main level up to the, looks probably the bottom of deck. Well, maybe not. Let's see. They chosen a location. We'll just say they are going to deck. Huh. Weird. Okay. So we'll just say that these interior partitions are going to go to the bottom of the deck. The floor above, to the bottom side of the floor above. Okay. So my walls are going to be defined from level 1 up to, well, if I take them to the level 2, when I place my floor, the walls are going to bleed through my floor, right? So it's time, before I draw these walls, I actually have to create another level. So I'm going to go back to my elevation views, and if this is level 2, this is going to be the same thing as if I were to say, you know, like with our house that we drew, we had the main level, and then we had bottom of structure, right? So we need to create a bottom of structure level here. So I'm going to go to architecture, level, right, and right below level 2, I'm going to create another level, and this will be my bottom of structure. And check that over there, right? And I'm going to guess a tiny bit. It's probably, is it B deck? Or is it trusses? I don't remember what it was. I'm just going to give this, we'll just make this number up. We'll make it 6 inches. And we'll call this bottom of structure level 2. So I want my walls essentially to start at level 1, and I want them to go to the bottom of structure level 2, and then I want there to be a floor between these two levels right here. Okay. So my interior walls now, WA, it's going to go from level 1 up to bottom of structure level 2. And this one is going to start at grid line 4. So grid line 4 over here. It's going to be center line. So location line is wall center line. Click. And I'm just going to draw over to where this kind of intersects right there. Right? And then we've got another wall that goes from grid line A, 16 foot 9 1/4 to the, looks like the front face of that wall. So WA, and I don't know where that is, right? So I just kind of draw it. DI dimension, tab, click, tab, click, click on the wall. And when I click on the wall, if I type a dimension here, it will move that wall out to meet that dimension. So 16 foot 4 or 16 foot 9 1/4. It's kind of a weird dimension, right? Delete. So now I have this wall established, I have this wall established, and looks like we have this framed wall. It's going to go midline all the way up to the end. So that's at grid line D. I think I'm just gonna follow my first instinct. Even we're not doing this for realsies, right? So we'll just draw it. But when something looks like that, we always pay attention because there's a reason. Usually, there's a reason why this is happening. Probably this is a fire rated, you know, enclosure right here with the stair and everything. So we don't want to just get rid of the block. So here I'm going to click on my wall. I know this is the wall I want to use, but instead of typing WA and finding wall type 2, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to choose create similar, right? You see me, I do this a million times, right? During a project, create similar, because I don't like going to search for things. I like drawing it one time, and then I like being able to just use create similar to go find it again. And this one went all the way up to there. Click, click. And we have that large enclosure back there. This. Right, the office, the new wireless switch back there. And then we have all of this area over here we're going to generate. But we're not going to do that just yet. We've got some doors we can put in here. So DR is the shortcut for door. And we'll just do a 3-foot by 7-foot door. This one's going to space bar, pop in right there, click. Then we have one right there. Space bar, click. We have one right there. Space bar, click. Looks pretty good, right? And there are some of our doors. And I'm going to save my project, Control S, because I don't want to lose any of my work. And we have kind of the basics for the wireless switch. Now, I think maybe what I'll do, I'm going to stop here pretty quick, but I think 2 more things I want to do before we stop is I want to create the floor on the main level, and I want to create the floor on the upper level. So I'm going to go to level 1, and next time we'll do the foundation wall, but I want to look at how the foundation is working. Okay. All right, so we're going to create a concrete slab, for the floor here. So I'm going to click on floor, and let's see if we have a slab here. We don't. I'm gonna pick this one and click edit type, duplicate. That looks like maybe a 6-inch concrete slab. Right, edit type, and we will make this cast in place concrete. Okay, 6 inches. And this actually has, it looks like, a gravel bed below it, so I'm going to add some gravel into that. Insert. Oof, delete. Move down, down. And, oh, I don't think, oh no, we do. We have earth. We're going to call it earth. Or maybe there's gravel in here. Let's look. Nope, no gravel. I'm going to do earth.
They call it aggregate in there?
Oh, maybe. That's a good, let's look. Nope. We can create a new one. Well, let's create a new one. We can create a new material. Let's call it rename gravel. Pattern will be, I don't know if we have a gravel pattern is the thing. We don't. We'll just make it solid. Go back to drafting. Oh, we'll do dense sand. That's good enough. Okay. Okay. And let's do 6 inches of gravel. Okay. Okay. And now I can draw my floor slab. And I'm just going to bring it up against the wall. I'm not going to stop it for the insulation. We'll just call it good. So this is basically a big rectangle, although I have to draw this down here, but really it's a big rectangle. So click, click. And then I just draw my little extension here. Ooh, that's bad. Right. Split, SL, click, escape, trim, TR, click, 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 click. Right, and I've got the outline of my floor. It's resting at level 1. I'm going to hit finish. Go into 3D mode, or actually I think I'm going to pull a section so that we can start looking at some of this stuff. Click, click. Let's do a 1/4 inch. There we go. Shaded view. And there's my little floor. So this is very nicely going to let me add my foundations. But there's my slab and there's the gravel beneath it. Okay, so let's add our second level. And the second level is going to be deck. We have decking here, right? And, oh, Okay, well, I can't remember how much space we left there. Was it 6 inches? Something like that? 6? Okay, there we go. Yep. So we're going to create a second level floor that's 6 inches thick. Okay, I'm going to go to level 2, click, click. And I'm going to go into floor again. And I'm going to choose my little, this one, the 3-inch lightweight concrete on 2-inch metal deck. I'm going to hit edit type. Edit. I'm going to, let's see, 5 inches. I'm just going to change this one to 6 inches. There we go. Close enough. And I'm going to draw my boundary. And in this case, the vestibule is below that mark, right? And so I don't have to do an upper level for the vestibule, right? It's just going to be a roof, essentially. This is going to be at level 2. I'm going to hit finish, go into my 3D mode, for my section, click, click, and I have my floors in there, right? So I've got my floor in there, looks pretty good. I wonder if I cut it the other way, if we'll get actually this detail in it. Let's look. I wonder if that's why it's... Oh, look at that. It's gorgeous. That's what I like to see. Okay. So that looks pretty good, right? We have a lot of messy views. My elevations and sections don't look quite right? So we'll have to figure those out next time. But what I think I want to do is, I'm going to stop here for today. And we will, next time we'll do the stairs. And we will, let's see, we'll do the stairs. And then we will draw out this area over here, right? So this area, the stairs. I think that'll be good. Okay. Let's see. We'll stop here. Stop.